What's up, guys? How's it going? We are back with another video. This time we're going to be covering what has been called a secret commander, I think is the term that I've been told. So here we have Winota. If you know about Winota or you don't know, Winota is pretty freaking cool. She is a commander that came out in Ikoria, and she's like got this interesting type of human tribal effect where when you attack with non-human creatures, you get to look at the top 6 of your library and put a human card from among the top 6 onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, and that human gains indestructible until the end of the turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So with this, when I immediately saw this, I kind of was like, that's an interesting commander, because it's like you gotta attack with non-human creatures to get human creatures. And I was like, how the heck are you gonna balance that out? Like, that's kind of like the first thing everybody thinks about is like, how are you gonna balance that out? But I'm actually going to put her in the 99 of a human that wants to help you make non-human tokens, which is interesting because this is a card that I actually don't see in the deck list, which is Ghired, green, white, red himself. Don't know why his name is green, white, red, but anyway, Mr. Conclave Exile, who attacks and makes rhinos. So this deck, we're kind of thinking of a way where we can like maximize this effect, right? And to maximize the effect, I want to take a look at the rulings on Winota really quick before we go further. So here we are at MTG Gatherer, and literally like this is kind of like something that I find interesting. So the reason why I'm going here first before diving into, the other section where we blow up cards and talk about stuff is because one thing I wanted to note is that she has actually a pretty interesting effect. So whenever you attack with a non-human creature, that triggers multiple times. So this is not a one or more effect. This is a when you attack with a non-human creature, for each non-human creature that attacked, it triggers separately. So you have stacks of effects, and I just wanted to point that out to make that very clear moving forward. Keep that in mind. This is going to be an interesting deck where we're trying to get out non-human creatures to attack with to make the trigger happen multiple times, to go through pretty much the entire deck and just get as many humans as we can onto the field. But the idea of what we want to do with this deck is we want to get humans that are either going to enter the battlefield with either an attack trigger or an ETB where they make like a non-human token, and that's kind of the idea that we want to go with. Maybe they won't enter, but with a non-human token, but maybe they'll do something where we can just keep making tokens, populating, getting more triggers, get the whole deck out, and then get into our finishers. Hopefully we'll get into our finishers sooner than later, but if we get into our finishers early, then we can like really power up this deck and just annihilate people. So now that we're going to get into covering this deck, or maybe deck tech, I don't know. We'll see how far this goes. But we're gonna start off with Ghired, Conclave Exile. And the reason why we're starting off with him is because he is going to be the face commander of this deck. Wait, that's right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. He's going to be the face commander, and Winota is the secret commander, as I was recently just informed I said that correctly. So with Ghired, Conclave Exile, we're going to be making those rhino tokens and then populating, which is going to be the cool thing. So we're going to focus a little bit around Ghired, but we're mostly going to focus on the fact that Ghired's going to set up our board state, so that way when we eventually get Winota out, which we have ways to search for Winota, so that's pretty good because green and green white have ways to just search for creatures to either add them to your hand, which we'll get into in a moment, or to put them on top of your deck. So we're gonna cover that, and then once Winota's out on the field, we're gonna try to get as many triggers as possible. So with Ghired, we want to make those treasure tokens, sorry. We want to make those rhino tokens to get us going. And they're 4/4 rhino tokens, which are pretty big. So if we can get a lot of attacks in and try to get him out early with a lot of mana ramp, that's why we're here. Why am I even repeating myself? On to the next section. All right, so first up in this section, we're going to talk about a few of the many humans that I found scouring online, both EDH Rec and MTG Gatherer. I'll just throw them all up on the screen, but we're going to talk about 3 specific humans. But before we talk about that, I want to say, if you bought Ghired's pre-con, that's where most of this deck is coming from. I wish Winota was created earlier, because she would have been a great card to add into the pre-con for the Naya populate deck, but she's here now and I'm just now figuring this out, so whatever. Yeah, moving forward. So first up, we're going to talk about Egg Lady, which most people should be familiar with, is a good card to have in. I just wanted to cover her just for a second because she does create non-human creatures. Even though they have defender and they're eggs, you mostly want to destroy them to get creatures off the top of your deck, but she does fit well with the deck because you can get those triggers multiple times, or you can use that to bring in more humans if you want to speed up the deck. She is another human that just creates more non-human tokens for you to further the deck, so she's a good include if you have her. If you don't, I won't get into the price range, but anyway. So next we're going to talk about Kessig Cage Breakers. Say that 3 times fast. Kessig Cage Breakers is a good new card a good reprint that came in the Coven Counters precon from Midnight Hunt in the human tribal deck. It is a human rogue that when it attacks, I'm about to say enters the battlefield. When it attacks, it creates a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Now, unfortunately, with Winota, if you add in creatures that have when they attack and they're entering from her ability to come in tapped and attacking, they do not have the trigger because the trigger is a part of declaring the attack. Also, quick note, just thought about it. Winota and other creatures that have similar effects, like Kalia the Vast and Elena who smiles at death. If a creature enters tapped and attacking, they get around cards like Propaganda, because Propaganda only taxes a player for declaring the attack. But if the creature enters tapped and attacking, they're already attacking, so it bypasses cards like Propaganda, Ghostly Prison, etc., etc. So Kessig creates a wolf token, and since that wolf token will enter the battlefield tapped and attacking, that triggers Winota again. So Kessig will be good if it comes in already tapped and attacking. I mean, it's a 3/4. It's pretty good, and you're cheating it in, so you're not paying the 5, hopefully. But then the next turn, or if you get an additional attack step, I mean, we're in red, you would want to run multiple attack triggers. So if you're getting additional attack phases, or if you're running multiple turns, which is possible in red, this card is going to just further the effect. Next, we're going to talk about Somber Ward Beastmaster, which is another card that came in the Coven Counters. These were the only 2 that I found in that Coven Counters, but they're not the only 2 cards from that precon that we're going to be using. When Somber Ward Beastmaster enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green wolf, a 3/3 green beast, and a 4/4 green beast. The reason why this is good, also creature tokens have death touch. The reason why Somber Ward is going to be good because that ETB is going to enter the battlefield and create tokens. Hopefully you're going to be cheating it out so that you're not paying the 7. But the good thing about this card is that it gives the creature tokens death touch. And if you know about humans and death touch, then you know where I'm going to go into later. But that's a good thing to just add in. You know, it's going to enter the battlefield, create you a bunch of tokens. So even if you're worried about the crackback from you attacking, you have blockers. This is why I wanted to go with humans that have ETB effects. So that way, when they enter the battlefield, they're going to give you something to block with afterward if you don't have something to untap all your creatures. Or if you don't have a way to give them vigilance, at least that way, you know, you have something to protect you on the back end. A lot of creatures that are going to be here. I found a crap ton and even more. If you want to see a deck list that I made and you want to just go through the creatures list, it'll be in the description below. Now that we know the type of creatures we're going to be putting into this deck, and if you check out that deck list, you'll also see some really good creatures. But from what you saw on the screen, we're going to need a way to specifically get Winota. So here are 3 of the 4 cards that I know of right off the top of my head that I like to use, I personally like to use because they're pretty good. So first up, we're going to use Aldemari's Call, which is a white-green instant that allows you to search your library for a creature, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Next, we have a card called Shared Summons, which I always say Shard for some reason. Shared Summons is a 5-drop instant in green where you can search for your library for up to 2 creatures with different names, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Then lastly, one of my personal favorites is Primal Command. Primal Command is also a 5-drop, but luckily if you're cheating out creatures, if you're worried about the high cost of these 2 search cards, I mean, you're not going to be using a lot of mana to summon creatures anyway. But, you know, Primal Command gives you 2 effects out of 4. So the first one is target player gains 7 life. The second one is put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. The third one is target player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library, which is what I like to use it for. And then the last one is search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Like I said, these are 3 of the 4 of these search cards that I like to use in these colors. On to the next topic. So next up, I want to talk about some interesting tech cards. Of course, you're going to want mana ramp, you know, so pick your favorite green mana ramp cards. I mean, that's not really too difficult. I always say go with 10, at least, you know, of your 3 visits, Nature's Lore, Farseek, Cultivate, etc., etc. But of course, you're going to want other things in this deck. So first thing I want to talk about is Aura Shards. When you have a lot of creatures entering the battlefield, the cool thing is about Aura Shards is that those creatures are going to destroy things. So you want to destroy your opponent's artifacts and enchantments. Aura Shards is a great card for that, and it recently dropped in price. So if you don't have that card, now would be a good time since it's under $10. Another card would be Privileged Position. Privileged Position is a card that I talked about before on this channel. I love it personally because it gives all other permanents hexproof, and it's in green and white, which is a great way to just, like I said, just to protect your stuff. If you've got, you know, stuff coming in off the top of the deck, you're looking at the top 6, you're playing them, you're getting multiple triggers, you're going through your deck, you want them to enter the battlefield tapped and attacking and be protected. So, you know, having them with hexproof is a great way to do it. And then lastly, for this section, I'd like to just spotlight Heroine Blade Elite. With all the creatures that you're going to be getting out, you know, she's going to be a great way to tap for mana. She also has Vigilance. She's a card you can get off the top 6 of your library. And whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Heroine Blade. So she's going to get bigger, which will lead us into our finishers in the next segment. But for now, with Heroine Blade, you can add to tap X mana of any one color, where X is the power of Heroine Blade. So, the bigger she gets, the more mana you're going to get. So if you're worried about the spells, like I was saying before, like the 5-drop spells, or maybe you drew into some of your creatures, a lot of humans are in green. A lot of the good humans are in mono green, or at least like green white or white. So at least she'll give you a lot of mana in one color, so that way you can just go, okay, well, I need to play shared summons. It's 5, I can tap her for 5 green. Privileged positions is 5, but you can pay green or white, so you can tap her for just like 5 white or 5 green, and play the card. There's a lot of cards like that where you can get them in for pretty cheap. Even like Somber Ward, Beastmaster, if it ends up in your hand with Heroine Blade and Winota getting you so many humans off the top of the deck each time a human enters, you could pay for Somber Ward Beastmaster, which was a 7-drop, 6 colorless, 1 green, with Heroine Blade Elite. So something just tech to add in. So for this one, I want to talk about some finishers. Not to make this video too long, because it could be very long and I don't want to ramble. So with some things we already covered like the Coven counters. We've already covered previous precons, but to cover another previous precon, the recent Coven counters is a good place to look for some cards if you recently got that precon as well, because Kyler, Sigarda's Emissary, Juniper, Order Ranger, and Champion of Lambhold will be great finishers for this deck. Kyler, Sigarda's Sigardian Emissary, need I say more? I've already covered a video on how great Kyler is. Check that out if you don't know about all the things that you can do with Kyler at the helm or in the 99. But this is another deck that he would go great in the 99 with. Since you're getting so many humans off the top of your deck with Winona's effect, he's going to get bigger, and then all other humans that enter the battlefield are going to get bigger. So that's kind of the good thing, where you want a card like Kyler to come in early, tapped and attacking, because if you get more triggers, let's say you have like 6 or 7 triggers, and off the first trigger you get Kyler on the battlefield. Well, for each other trigger after that, if there are 6 humans that come, let's say 5 more humans that come into the battlefield after Kyler, when you do those 5 additional triggers, then Kyler's going to get +5/+5, and then all other humans on the field are going to get +5/+5. So, that's a good thing. And then, like I said, with what's her name? Heroine Blade Elite, she's going to get bigger, so it's going to be something where you're going to just become this huge force. And that's why I wanted to highlight this deck, because when you look at cards like Kyler and Juniper, which kind of have the same effect, but Juniper just puts a counter on the creatures that come in, but puts more counters on itself, where Kyler puts a lot of counters on itself and then pumps up everybody. Cards like these, along with Champion of Lambhold, can just win you games, especially Kyler himself. When you're coming in with humans rapid firing off the deck, entering the battlefield, getting bigger, already tapped and attacking. Once you get into damage calculation, you could even sneak and just win the game really quickly if you get enough triggers to go through your deck and get enough humans on the battlefield. Plus all your tribal support. This is still a human tribal deck, even though a lot of humans are coming in and making non-humans. The humans themselves are the ones that are really the front line of the deck. So with cards like these that are just going to get huge over time, especially with Champion of Lambhold, where Champion of Lambhold does not care what type of creature enters the battlefield. As long as a creature enters the battlefield under your control, she gets a +1/+1 counter. So that includes the creature tokens, the rhinos from Ghired, and Kessig and all the other stuff, the splicers that when they enter the battlefield they make a 3/3 golem, which are human artificers. Like whatever you have that enters the battlefield, she's going to get bigger. So, you know, like I said, like you can just come away with a really powerful hit and maybe kill 1 or 2 opponents right off the bat if you top deck into these, and then you keep going with more and more triggers. Also, I want to throw out a little bit of a caution when it comes to playing certain cards that target non-human creatures, because you can throw in non-human creatures that have good effects that maybe whenever another creature deals damage, draw a card, or something that just draws you a bunch of cards. You always want to have a draw package, but be wary about cards like Return of the Wild Speaker. While Return of the Wild Speaker is a really good instant to draw a bunch of cards because you're going wide, keep in mind that it specifically says non-humans on the card. So, you know, when you're thinking about your draw package, you know, Shamanic Revelation, and other cards that are out there, there are a bunch of really good cards that you can pull from that draw cards, or maybe even cards that you want to have make you treasure tokens while you draw in red, but you discard a card. Return of the Wild Speaker is just something you want to keep in mind. If you have a lot of non-human creature tokens, you could get a lot of good cards off of that, but I would try to stay away from cards that say non-human on the cover, because it is still a human deck. You know, if someone does something that bounces everything back to your hand, you know, you're going to lose out on all the tokens that you're making, which is a risk. But the fact is that it's something there. So you might want to run a card like Holfrey in the deck, who is also in red and white. Holfrey was from the Lorehold school in Strixhaven, where if a non-token creature dies, exile it, and if you do, create a token copy of the creature, except it's a spirit. So with Holfrey being in red white, a 5-drop who can protect your creatures to an extent, if someone board wipes, you're gonna get all your creatures back, but they're spirits. So you can imagine all the triggers happening again. You know, Winota, and then everything else will trigger again because you know, maybe they did it during your main phase, or you know, it gets back to your turn. You have all these spirits, but they're also non-human. So now you can use a card like Return of the Wild Speaker, but at the same time, you're going to be attacking with all non-humans, you know, including Winota, and that's going to be a heck of a lot of triggers. So you're going to get, you know, so many triggers you could probably go through your entire deck. I don't know how this deck would work with something like decking out, because I haven't played it yet. This is just an idea I've been having in my head for a while, but I would definitely, you know, take precaution to cards like Holfrey or cards like Return of the Wild Speaker, just because you don't know what type of outcome it could have. It could have a really awesome effect where you get all the rest of the humans in your deck to the field, but then at the same time, you know, we don't know how many times you can keep doing that before you just run out of creatures. So, you know, run about 30 creatures or so, run some ways to get them back into your deck to refill your decks. That way you can keep getting creatures back onto the field. Or if you need to, run cards like Conjurer's Closet to bounce them back to get those ETB triggers again, so they're not running stale. You know, if they're a card that's really weak, like what was it, Somber Walled Beastmaster, which is a 7-drop 1/1. Yeah, it makes really powerful tokens, 2/2, 3/3, and 4/4 tokens, but it's still a 1/1 creature. So, you know, if you can keep blinking that, you know, with cards like Conjurer's Closet, and there are other cards in white that blink, you know, that might help you out. Or even the Saber Cat, I forgot what it's called, it'll be up on the screen, that's in green, that can return cards back to your hands, that way you can play them again. And that is it for this deck profile, deck tech. I don't know. If you're interested in Winota, human tribal with a twist. Like I said, the deck list is in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Final notes, I would say, even though cards like Anointed Processions and Parallel Lives are really good for this deck, they are also really expensive. So try to look for budget options if you don't have the money. There are a couple of cards in red that do some really good effects that are very similar, that are really cheap. I think one of them was like Flame Shadow something. I forgot what it was called. It'll be up on the screen. But there are other cards that are especially tribal focused that can get you, a lot of effects for creatures entering the battlefield, or for playing creatures or copying creatures, and you don't need per se the more expensive cards. Also be sure to throw in your Populate package if you have it. Like I say, if you got the Naya Populate Precon, which I forgot the name of it, they came with all the Populate cards you need. It really did. It came with everything. Don't forget your Mana Rep packages and your Draw packages, which there are a lot of. Populate even has a couple of really good cards that give all your creatures indestructible, then Populate, or get you Draw and then Populate. There's some really good things in there that will help add on to everything. But as far as Naya goes, Winota was just a card that I saw and I was like, this card is going to be awesome. And then no one really seemed to put it together with Ghired. I know there were some talks of some people like thinking about it, but honestly, it is a pretty fun deck in idea form, at least. Maybe, I don't know, if when I play it, I'll see if you guys have tried it out. Let me know in the comments. I would love to know if you've tried putting Winota with Ghired, Conclave, Exile, and seeing what happens between the two. Is it a good interaction? Were you not able to get Winota out fast enough? Were you not able to search for her? Did the deck just not work because you never got all the pieces to line up? Or if it's something new, like with adding in Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, which is a powerhouse card all by himself. Let me know how that went. Because Winota is pretty cool. Like, I even thought about putting her in Najeela, just because Najeela doesn't make humans. And having 5-color warriors, maybe going with a human tribal, more of the same idea as Ghired, just 5-color, and just throwing in a bunch of really good stuff, and having Najeela for the extra combat phases might just, make that deck really fun and really out of control and wild. And, who knows what might happen. It might lead to some great stories, amongst your friends, and to tell other people that you meet. But yeah, that's it for me. Like I said, deck list of what I put together down below, but definitely just wanted to challenge the stats because I didn't see Ghired with Winota at all on EDH Rec. I forgot to even show that. Sorry, but yeah, Winota and Ghired never even cross paths in each other's decks, and I find that interesting because they're seem like two people that would get along with the way their effects are. Ghired making rhinos and populating, and he also makes creature tokens that Winota searches for creatures to bring in tapped and attacking. It seems like they're just a really good pair, and I don't know, it's kind of just weird that it felt like I was the only one that maybe thought about that, or maybe I'm the only one willing to put it together. Who knows? I'll eventually build the deck and let you guys know how it went for me, but until then, that's it for me. I'm signing off. If you found this video helpful or interesting, do all those YouTube things like comment, subscribe. Also, I'm getting close to a big milestone on this channel. 500 people we're getting close to, and for EtherHub, a YouTube channel needs 500 subscribers or more to start posting videos on EtherHub. So yeah, if you could share this video if you found it helpful, that would be a great appreciation. And until the next video, I will see you guys later. Peace.